I'm going to show you how to build your foundation for automation using Claude Code. This might be overkill for some, but if you do any kind of work in N8N or you want to level up your business development infrastructure, this is worth a watch. Otherwise, fast forward to the end for the clay explanation to get the main gist of what I'm trying to communicate. So here's the idea. If you're not familiar with the Dream 100 concept, it comes from Chet Holmes, later popularized by Russell Brunson. The idea is simple. Identify with the people who already have your ideal audience's attention, influencers, thought leaders, creators in your space. Your potential clients are already following them, engaging with their content, and commenting on their posts. So instead of cold outreach to strangers, you show up where your people already are. You engage with them in the comment section, you add value, you build familiarity. Then when you connect, you're not just some random person in their DMs, you're the person who left that thoughtful comment on that post they liked. The problem is doing this manually is chaos. You're scrolling through about 20 different profiles, hoping to find a post worth engaging on, hoping someone in the comments is actually worth talking to. That's not 15 minutes. That's an hour and a half of noise. So I'm going to build a system today that does this filtering for me. It scrapes posts from the Dream 100, well, more like Dream 20, and pulls comments, uses AI to find the ones that are actually worth responding to. What this is going to do is surface 5 to 10 high quality engagement opportunities for me every morning, ready to go. I'm going to build this live, so you're going to come with me, and by the end, we're going to have this in production. You're going to understand how everything works from the technical back end to actually seeing how you will get results. So just a quick note before we jump in, and I want to make this abundantly clear, is everything here uses publicly available data. So we're not doing any personal profile scraping on LinkedIn. This is what is available publicly, and it isn't about automating all of your outreach. You're still posting comments yourself, sending connection requests yourself. This just makes sure that when you actually sit down to do your own business development, you're talking to the right people. So what does the stack look like for this in order for us to get started, and what are the costs? Well, you're going to be working with Claude Code today. You're going to be working with N8N for workflow orchestration. You are going to be using APIify for doing public scraping. And then we're going to be using Clay to help organize all of our lead data. So let's hop into how we can actually build this out and take this into reality. So to get started on this project, what I've done is I've installed Cursor on my machine, and I created a new project inside of Cursor called Dream 100. From there, in the terminal, I'm on Windows, so I'm working in PowerShell. I've taken the GSD install code and I fed that into PowerShell and installed GSD. And GSD is great for even very small projects like this, where essentially all we're doing is setting up a MCP server for N8N and APIify that essentially just connects our terminal here to those two services so we can expedite the process of getting this done. And then from there, inside of Claude Code, I ran the command GSD new project. And then GSD says, okay, what do we want to build? What I've done on the outside is I've done a brain dump inside of Claude Opus, where I've essentially said, hey, I have a workflow that I want to engage. I want to use N8N. I want to use APIify that feeds into a Clay table. And then I want to manipulate the data for business development purposes. So once I feed that prompt into GSD, it's going to break that up into phases. And then we're going to go from there. So I'm going to do this project very quickly, and once I finish the project, I'll run you through how it all came together. And really quickly, as I was doing the research for this particular video, what would have been really cool if play.com had an active MCP framework that we could use. Unfortunately, they don't have an MCP framework or any MCP tools right now. So if anybody from Clay is listening or watches this video, please release an MCP server. That would be fantastic and it will get a lot of use. So back to the rest of the tutorial. So while our GSD project is running, I fed in the prompt and it's now doing research on the first phase, which is setting up the MCP servers. I'm going to put together my Dream 100 list. I've already put this together, and so you're going to have to put this together as well. And I can tell you there's a lot of ways that you can expedite this process of putting together a Dream 100, but the best thing you can do is really just sit down, do research for the influencers in your particular niche, and put together a list. Now you can use Google and you can do a bunch of scraping techniques, but the key here is you want your Dream 100 to be really put together. So here I've just set up a CSV document and I'll make this template available for you. I'll even make the Dream 100 that I've created available to you as well. But you can see here I have their name, their LinkedIn profile, the business that they have, whether they have a podcast, a YouTube channel, their x.com, their Instagram, a little bit of a write-up that I've just ran through AI to help me understand what this is. So essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to take the top 25 out of this 100, and I am going to essentially do a public LinkedIn scrape of the posts that they do. And then from there, we're going to identify the comments in those posts that match like insightful comments, not just like, hey, great post. And then from there, we're going to analyze and see if those individual people match our ICP or if they're people that we want to network with. And then we're going to try to engage with them from there. So now that we have the Dream 100 figured out, what we're going to do is move the CSV into the project folder. And you can see how I've set up GSD here. So I said I was going to do a prompt, but I ended up just talking directly into GSD to show off the capabilities here. And you can see that GSD is asking me a bunch of questions. So they're asking me where the Dream 25 list is, how recent the scrape should be, what data do we need from the people who comment, how should we handle comment quality filtering inside of NAN or Clay? And then where's the Dream 25 hosted? So right now it's hosted in a Google Sheet, but to do a minimal viable product, we're just going to move the CSV file directly into the project. And then from here, you can see that we've created a project plan through GSD that's essentially going to put everything together. So I'm going to execute on the project plan now through GSD. We have the Dream 25 CSV file inside of the project, and this shouldn't take long. So GSD is doing its thing now, and it essentially spit out the process to get the project done. A couple of really good questions actually came up through GSD. And one of the things we need to pay attention to is these scrapers have costs to them. So we want to put a limit on the amount of comments that are actually being captured. And then it asked me like, hey, do we want to go with the ones with the most engagement? And if we think about this, we actually want to do the opposite. We want to go with users who are commenting on these influencers' posts that don't have engagement, which maximizes the opportunity for us to actually gain a new valuable network connection. So I'm going to focus on the ones without a lot of engagement. So the next step is installing the MCP servers into our Claude Code project. We need to install the APIify MCP and then the N8N MCP. I'm on the APIify documentation at the bottom of this page, which I'll share in the description, is you just hit your AI application integration, you say Claude Code, and here it gives you a code that you can use to copy directly into Claude Code with your API token, and it'll automatically install the MCP server for you. For the N8N one, essentially this is the repository, and you can install it directly through this command into your terminal, and then creating your .mcp.json folder using this configuration. Now this isn't an MCP installation video, so if you want to learn more about this, I'm happy to create a video on it, but I'm going to move on now that we have these MCP servers installed. And how you can just make sure that your MCP servers are installed is essentially going into Claude Code. Once you install them, if you type in /MCP, you can see that I have the MCP server for N8N connected. and the local MCP for Apify is also connected. So outside of developing this project, I could just say to Claude Code, use the APIify MCP to do research and discover which scrapers are best for this project, and Claude Code will actually connect to Apify, explore the actors, and see how everything connects, and then come up with certain strategies for we can do this. And then same for the NAN MCP, we can say, use the NAN MCP to return the last workflow that was created. And then Claude Code will use the NAN MCP to do that. So we're gonna run this, and we can see right here, it's just gonna run, it connected to my MCP, success is true, and it's going to grab the last workflow that comes up, and we can move on to finishing the planning out of this project. So I'm gonna run this through right now, and we'll have a quick discussion once the automation is created and the APIify actors are set up, and then we're gonna go into Clay. So one of the things I just want to point out as we're going through this project, GSD and Claude Code, you can see it's really easy. Once you get the MCP server set up, GSD just prompts you and helps you along getting the information that you want specific to your particular project. It helps you execute. But that being said, one of the things I did just want to point out really quickly is that inside of Clay, what we're going to need to do is connect the NAN automation with Clay. And the way you do that is very simply, hit up a new Clay table. And then once you're in a new Clay table, all you gotta do is hit add new enrichment, go to a source and then a webhook. And then from here on the left, there's gonna be this webhook URL. All you gotta do is copy that into the NA10 automation, and then you're good to go. Okay, so the overall implementation of our NAN workflow has now been finalized. The Clay table has been automated. And as I was going through this, I just want to point out a couple of things. Unfortunately, in this particular workflow, the automation was not one shot, it was two shot, which is still pretty good. I ran into one syntax error in the code node that I had. And how I just troubleshot that is inside of NAN, which I'm going to show you right now, is inside of NAN, what you can do is you can see like my test executions here. So you can feed in this ID number. You can say, hey, we failed on ID number 24792. MCP, check it out. And what the MCP server will do is it will look at that exact execution and it will troubleshoot it on your behalf, and then it'll resave the workflow. So now our workflow works as intended. So it comes in, it grabs our Dream 25 influencers. It then scrapes the posts. It filters those posts and scrapes the comments. It filters that comment data, and then it sends it over to Clay. So if you're doing this yourself, you just need to update your send to Clay webhook URL, and then you just need to make sure your Apify credentials are put in these two nodes. So going over to the Clay table now, you can see all of our webhooks have data in them, and we've discovered something that is going to save us money. I thought at this point we would have had to scrape, individual profiles as well, but we don't actually have to do that because in the data, in the webhook data, we have a commenter headline. So in this one, you can see that this person's headline is scaling 1 to 50 million companies into market leaders. So we can take this comment headline and we can help determine if they're a fit, if they fit into our ICP, or if there's somebody we want to network with. So I'm going to build out the Clay table for this now, and we're going to see how this Clay table starts to really manipulate the data for our particular use case, so we can network with people who are essentially on the same level as us or maybe a step ahead of us. And this is really going to help us grow out to the next level. Okay, so I've gone ahead and used GSD and Claude Code to plan out the rest of the automation. As you can see here, I've added in that filter on the posts. I have some pinned data in here so I don't keep wasting my money doing APIify calls. And then I actually had the idea, you know what, if we're cleaning up the posts, why don't we clean up the comment data as well? So I just created a quick post that essentially filters out comments that we can't actually add any value to. So like single word answers, self-promotional spam, simple congrats, emoji only, great posts, things like that. So After we run this, we now have the clay table. And the clay table is very simple. And the purpose of this is really, really interesting on how we can actually grow our LinkedIn profile. Our daily workflow for developing our business on LinkedIn now has all of that admin work that goes into that is now gone, right? So we take the webhook data, it goes into Clay, and then from there, what I've done is I've added something called a network fit score. And essentially what the network fit score is doing is it's taking the content from the post and it's taking commenter's headline and it's asking the question, is this person relevant for us to actually network with? And then what I've done is I've fed my own business criteria in there where I sell go-to-market AI consulting services. So I'm essentially saying, hey, I'm an AI go-to-market consulting firm. Look at this person's headline and determine if they're a fit for me to network with. And then from there, I want you to give them a score out of 100. So here you can see they're scored out of 100 based off of all the posts. And what we're gonna do from here is essentially take the top 10 per day, because we don't want to waste too much time on networking every day, but we do want to do it every day. Not that we're wasting time, but we just really want to enhance our workflow. And we want to get to the meat, which is essentially the people who are most likely to they're a step ahead of us in where we are at in our business. So we want to network with them to increase our skill set, or B, we want them to be a potential buyer of our services, right? So we want to start providing those people value. So, and also, we also need to coincide with LinkedIn's terms of service for how many connections we can add in a day. Because what we're essentially going to do is we're going to comment on their comment, we're going to add them as a LinkedIn connection, and then we're going to follow them to see if we can continue to converse with them or if we can generate a network connection for ourselves that way. And so once we've filtered this, we don't want this clay table to be a fully automated process at this point. At this point, this is where the human touch comes in, and we don't want to over automate. You know, this can take 15 minutes in your morning. You go through the top 10 comments to see if they're actually relevant to your business. And then from there, like if I'm like, okay, this one looks like a good comment that I think I can have a lot of value on, I'm going to generate that comment. I'm going to generate a response to that comment, which this is what this automation does, is it essentially takes my business, it takes the post, and it takes the comment that was there, and then it's generating a comment that I can provide. So I'm going to take this, I can clean it up if I decide personally that this is a person I want to network with. I can clean it up and I can copy this. So like one of the things you might want to do with this particular automation is you want to get rid of the EM dashes. So you might want to just clean up the prompt a little bit. Like this is a demo, so it's not totally dialed in, but you get the gist of it. And then from there, we can go to the actual post URL. We can find the commenter, and then we can post this comment under their comment. We can like their previous comment, and then we can add them on LinkedIn and attempt to start networking with them. So there's a couple of things we can do on the back end of this as well. So once that's done, unfortunately, the way that LinkedIn works is you want it to be quality. So there's no way to just click a button and magically go to that comment. So you're gonna wanna grab their first name and move it up here. So then you can just like Control F, which finds the person, and then paste their name after you load the comments. And then you can post your comment from there. And then additionally, what you can add on to the back end of this clay table is any CRM work that you want to do. So there's a lot of tools out there, like you can import this into your own CRM so you can follow these contacts more closely. If you do choose to use LinkedIn automation to do outreach in like DMs or something like that, you can add these individuals into there and then follow up with them in a more automated way if that's something that you want to do. Just make sure it's in line with LinkedIn's terms of service. So overall, this is pretty much the demo of where we got. At the end of the day, we do a lot of work with the data before it actually comes into Clay, but then we make it really easy for ourselves. And right now, the current LinkedIn ratios is once your LinkedIn profile is fully warmed up, you can do about 30 LinkedIn connects a day. You can make a lot more comments. So you can make a lot of these comments, and you can probably do more than 30 if you really wanted to, or you can only do 10 or 5. That's typically what I do because I really try to get meaningful connections, and I always follow up my comments with a connection request after that. And you can say something in the connection request. You could even make another column here for the particular connection request that says, hey, saw your post on XYZ influencers post, was interested in connecting with you. And then that will increase your connection ratios as well. So I'll add that in on the back end of this. You're gonna have access to the Clay table. You're gonna have access to the NAN automation. So best of luck implementing this into your own workflow. And if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. That's the system. Every morning I open Clay. I've got 5 to 10 people worth engaging with. I see the post they commented on, what they said, and a draft reply ready to tweak. I post the comment, send the request, and then move on to the next one. 15 minutes, done my networking for the day. Here's the thing though, this only works if you actually put in the work. The AI filters, the automation surfaces the opportunities, but you still have to show up. You still have to write something worth reading, and you still have to nurture the relationship after they accept the connection. If you're not willing to do that, this system isn't going to save you. But if you are, this is how you make sure your time is well spent. Now, there's a lot we can do, and there's a lot we can build on top of this, like creating a morning digest that gets sent to your Slack, so you don't have to worry about going into the Clay table every day. If you want me to build anything out on top of this in a future video, drop a comment and let me know which one. I'm also making the NAN workflow and the Clay table template available in my free school community. So if you want access to that, just hit the link below and you can implement this for yourself. If this was helpful, subscribe. I'm always going to be building more of these, taking ideas and building them live and putting them into production. So I'll see you in the next one.